The crypto market is in a really unique spot right now because what we're seeing is a relatively high and stable Bitcoin dominance while also seeing a climbing level of Ethereum dominance. So what I want to do in this video is break down how this can affect the major cap cryptos like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and how this could also be a potentially negative thing for some of the smaller altcoins. Because in response to everything that the SEC has done this week, we are starting to see funds bleed away from traditional altcoins, even smaller altcoin projects, and go into things like Bitcoin and Ethereum. So if that sounds interesting, all that I ask is that you stick around for the video, and if you like it, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. But let's go ahead and dive on in here. And the first thing that I want to highlight is number one, just how similar the Bitcoin and Ethereum charts are right now. And when all this SEC stuff started happening towards the beginning of the week, Bitcoin took an immediate dip of around 5%. So really just over 5%. Now the following day after this happened, again, everyone was scared, so they were selling off their Bitcoin. But the very next day when Bitcoin rose, it rose by almost 6%. So how does it make sense that Bitcoin is able to drop 5% on this news and then immediately the very next day rise 6%, even more than it dropped in the first place one day prior? And a similar story goes for something like Ethereum. Ethereum dropped a bunch, and then the very next day, it was all the way back up, erasing pretty much all the losses that it had. And the way that this works is if we go to a lot of the cryptocurrencies that were mentioned, Matic was just one of the examples. Matic tanked through the floor. So for those of you who aren't familiar, the SEC came out and said that they are going to be investigating and potentially suing the likes of Binance, Coinbase, BNB, BUSD, Cardano, Matic, and so many other different altcoins. Again, there's about a dozen of them, so I couldn't even list them all off the top of my head. But Matic was one, and another one, as I said, was Cardano. And so we see these big moves down here from the likes of Matic and Cardano and Filecoin, Mana, Decentraland, and a lot of those other cryptos that were mentioned by the SEC. And so what we saw wasn't necessarily a mass exiting out of cryptocurrencies in its entirety, but instead what we saw was an exodus from these altcoins into other cryptocurrencies. Most commonly, this was the case in things like Bitcoin and Ethereum. So again, where we are looking at Cardano here, and then on Matic right here, even though we had these big moves down, the funds really weren't kind of exiting out of crypto. Instead, they were going into things like Ethereum and Bitcoin. So if we go and we look at Ethereum dominance, we can see that in the past couple of months, Ethereum dominance has been on the rise. And this alone isn't anything new because it's pretty common knowledge that any kind of dominance will fluctuate. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. I think the unique thing here is that we're seeing Bitcoin dominance rising, Ethereum dominance rising at the same time that Bitcoin dominance is rising and still relatively high. So just take note of this chart, really going all the way back to March and April of this year. That's where Ethereum dominance bottomed out. And ever since about March of this year, Ethereum dominance has been on the uptick from around a 0.062 all the way up to where it is now at just below a 0.07. And if we go when we look at something like Bitcoin dominance has been on the uptick for the large majority of this year. And even going back to where we saw Ethereum dominance bottom around March and April, this is also when Bitcoin dominance really picked up as well. So I think the unique situation here is that Bitcoin and Ethereum dominance are rising at the same time, and what that means is that money is flowing out of altcoins and into major cap cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. People want to be a little bit less risk on, and what they're doing is they're getting out of some of these altcoins that could be a little bit more risky, especially the ones that were mentioned by the SEC, and then they're in turn putting that money into things like Bitcoin or Ethereum or maybe even stable coins as well. And so this creates a really unique situation because, as you remember from a couple of my videos ago, I talked about the supply and demand issues for major cap cryptocurrencies. You have Ethereum, for example, not only being actively burned, actively staked, but also seeing a really low amount of Ethereum that is circulating on exchanges. So Ethereum is now increasing in demand while it's also at the rarest point that it's been on exchanges for the last 5 or so years. So it does create a really interesting spot, and it makes you wonder that if the SEC is going to continue keeping this up, what altcoins are next? Could this be a good thing for Bitcoin and Ethereum? And I think that while Bitcoin and Ethereum certainly don't need any help, like going up, like they don't need altcoins to get wrecked for them to continually grow as projects. I do think that this inadvertently helps them. And that these large caps like Bitcoin and Ethereum are at a unique spot, because if things get too risky, then people are taking money out of altcoins and putting it into them. And the only way that I think we'll kind of see this reverse is once the next market cycle happens and things really start moving again, people will want to be more risk on with their money, because you can make more money faster in a lot of these altcoin projects. And once the dust settles and once everything starts to go back to normal and the next bull market picks up, that will be when I think we're going to start to see the dominance start to fall away. So again, yeah, it's going to fluctuate a little bit here and there, but this is something that I noticed happening in the background that I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of, because as I always say, my job is not to give you investment advice. That's not what I do here. Simply, I want to bring all the information that is happening in the background to the spotlight so that the everyday person doesn't have to do hours, if not days or weeks of research to have to be able to know this stuff. So again, all that I ask is that if you like the information that I bring forward, consider hitting that like button, consider smashing that subscribe button, and stick around for more videos just like this one. And as always, if you got a comment or a question, throw it down in the comment section and I'll be happy to answer it there. But until next week's video, everyone, I'll see all of you very soon.